Hey cycling community, this is Steve, Bruce is the Cycling Greek, and I am now in the X block. The X block is a 10-day period of time between the holidays, including weekends, where I'm off of work and I can go ride every day if I wanted to, and I'm going to be trying to ride every day. Now, the difficulty is that the first 3 days are going to be rideable days outside, and then the next 7 days, and even after that, it's going to be raining. Now, I can't complain too much about the rain because we've been in a drought situation, so thank goodness for Zwift. During these X blocks in the past, I've done extra vlogging, and it's been inspired by what the vegan cyclist has done with his Ride Like a Pro series that he does in December. So, this is going to be my smaller version of that with my X block series. A little later on today, Natalia, who's a young woman I've been coaching, and I are going to be going out and doing our FTP tests. Right now, it is cold and foggy, so we'll be doing that in the afternoon. In the meantime, I want to tell you about how my channel went from being about an old guy racing bicycles to an old guy with Afib racing bicycles. So, what is atrial fibrillation? Well, I've got some pictures for you. With atrial fibrillation, you have these hot spots, usually focused around the connection between the heart and the aorta, and they conduct their own propagation of those impulses, and that just messes everything up. When you take a look at the second picture here, you can see the heart on the right, on the left, has the propagation only comes from the SA node. Both chambers of the atria, I believe, basically pump at the same time, while both chambers in the lower half, the ventricular chambers, they pump at the same time. So then, when you have the Afib, you can see where the various hot spots, on that with the picture on the right, that they're conducting their own, and so now you have this all these impulses that are happening when they're not supposed to be happening. The top part of the heart starts to flutter, and that prevents all the blood from going from one chamber to the next chamber. And that's why people, when they start to get Afib, they typically get short of breath, and that's like the first sign. So the signal that you have at the bottom of the left side, that's a normal signal. When you have this fluttering, then the graph on the right, that's what it can look like. So when did I first get my Afib? I just turned 60. And I had come home from my district championships road race, and everything was fine. And I didn't realize it. I got into Afib until a couple of days later. In fact, I didn't even know then. I go out and get on the bike because that district road race was a goal race, and I had worked up to it. And then after the race, you take a couple of days off, then you start, working things back up again. So I did like a little recovery ride, and I went out with teammates, and we were going literally just recovery, and I was having a hard time keeping up with them. So at a certain point, I just, waved them on, and I just rode on back a lot slower. So I figured maybe I was coming down with something. And so a couple days later, I get on the bike again, and again I have those problems where I can't go too hard. I can't go even regular. So I wasn't doing the out-of-breath thing, just on normal day-to-day stuff because I'm in the middle of race season and I'm in top form. But when I start to put pressure on my heart, so to speak, by doing stuff on the bike, then it was starting to become evident. I still didn't know what it was, but I figured something was wrong. Went to the doctor. They hooked me up, said, "Oh, you have atrial fibrillation." What's atrial fibrillation? And then I go through all that. So they get me connected with a cardiologist, and he put me on a blood thinner for I think a couple weeks, and then he says at that point, he's going to then do a cardiovert on me. So, the blood thinner. The reason for the blood thinner is that on the body left atria, that there's a little extra pocket in there. And so when you have this incomplete transfer of blood from one chamber to the next chamber, then it can pool up in there, and then you'll have the cells just kind of banging on each other every once in a while. And at a certain point they may damage themselves, and then that's where the clot can form. And so having Afib is not going to kill you, the clot can kill you, or cause other problems, major problems as when it goes to your brain, that type of thing. So that's why when people are on Afib, you see these commercials, you see them talking about warfarin or Eliquis. Eliquis was what I was on. And the cardiovert, that was quite interesting. I wanted to feel everything. I know I've obviously never been cardioverted before. I never had paddles go on me before. In fact, in this case, even though the picture that you see right now has paddles on it, I was just wired up, flipped the switch, and then I was back in sinus. So I wanted to go do it without it, and as they called it, going naked, I think that's what it was. But they still gave me some stuff, and they could have given me the same amount. They just told me it was a lot less. I don't know, but you know, everything was fine. I didn't really feel anything. They just flipped the switch, and all of a sudden they said, "Okay, you're good." So when I first found out that I had atrial fibrillation, I've started out, you know. It's not like I was totally shocked, but you know, I was shocked enough, and it's like, okay, am I going to have a change in lifestyle, because I love racing, I love riding bikes, I love, you know, all that stuff, and you know, I just didn't know enough about it. So I did some research on it and did, you know, quite a bit of research. So while no one knows exactly why a person gets a AFib attack, there's a lot of data out there that points to what could be the cause. So in my case, I was burning the candle at both ends, not getting enough sleep for decades. That's one. Next one is, in my training, fatigue was something to overcome, not to work with and deal with appropriately. Those were the two major factors. My blood pressure's fine. When they did an echo on my hearts, you know, at that first time back when I was 60, you know, everything was fine. So it was basically lifestyle. There was some other, for about 9 months beforehand, because I was not a coffee drinker, I didn't do monster drinks, things like that, but for 9 months before the incident, I started doing that. So it didn't cause it, but it certainly kicked it over the edge, so to speak. And so then, you know, I was drinking coffee, and all of a sudden, man, this is great. I'm awake now. Because I was always fighting sleep, because again, burning the candle at both ends. And then I started doing those, you know, small little monster type drinks, and then bigger drinks, and so, you know, that wasn't good. So obviously, so I went through a number of lifestyle changes, and the one lifestyle change was no more caffeine. And you know, because basically I could do a whole thing on caffeine. It's you know, causes hormonal changes, all that stuff. The positives of the caffeine are there because of the negatives of the caffeine. But anyway, that's another video. So also sleep. I made sure I went to bed early. I don't always get smooth sleep. I'm up every couple hours often, but you know, I make it work. So sleep was the big thing, and then again, dealing with fatigue appropriately. The key for me was not to put any extra pressure on my heart, because I'm doing enough pressure with the training and so forth. So working that into my lifestyle, actually that was easier. It's just making a decision and being aware about that. In terms of my training, when I first started back again after AFib, I had to give up some stuff. I got to race, and so obviously I've been racing, and that's the priority. I was also doing double centuries, and I love doing that. And when I do double centuries, I don't do them just to do them. I go to do them as fast as I can, and you know, compare myself to others, that type of thing in terms of the results. So I had to give that up. In fact, in the beginning, one of the rules that I had, because I have this whole set of rules, and you know, we're talking about that now. One of the rules was no rides over 3 hours, and no 2 hard days in a row. 2 hard days in a row, pretty much I stick to that. I don't do that anymore. 3 hours after a couple years, that went up to, you know, 4.5 hours, and now I don't worry about it so much. I just don't do big stuff back to back. So I'm not going to do a 5-hour ride on one day and a 5-hour ride on another day. Now there has been occasions, let's say once a year, maybe twice a year, where, for example, last year I did 2 road races. And actually on the Sunday one, I was so reamed from the Saturday one that I got dropped at a certain point at like 24 miles into the 65-mile road race, and so I just rode back easy, and you know, I figured, you know, that's okay. Maybe I was just pushing things too much. So that, along with my diet, has always been pretty good, and I'm always working to improve it. You know, experiment with some stuff, things like that. And that's also important. Again, keep pressure off of the heart so I can do the things that I want to do. And this is going to work as long as it works. At a certain point, it's not going to work. I'm 67 now. And so I've been doing this for 7 years, and so when this first happened, people were saying, you know, maybe you just got to slow down, that type of thing. Well, I didn't want to slow down. I mean, I slowed down a bit, but not working on ultra-distance stuff. Keeping to my rules has worked out. Now, in terms of the AFib, had that AFib when I was 60. Next year, I was able to go to district road race again. I woke up again the next day or so with AFib. At that point, I could feel everything. There's people who can't feel their their hearts, and apparently I can. So that has its advantage. Of course, I can feel all the palpitations, etc. But I use that to determine if I'm fatigued or if anything's going on. Got another electrocardioverts. Then after that, they gave me flecainide, which is a sodium channel blocker. So if I get AFib again, I take those like those old nitro pills that you may have seen on TV and some like the older shows where they start to get a heart attack or something, and they take the nitro pills, and then that kind of corrects them, puts them back in the sinus, I guess. So I had to use that, I think, like 4 times. So now it's been 18 months since my last AFib attack, and before that, it was 1 day short of 2 years before that AFib attack. Now, I went to the doctor for my yearly checkup, and they actually did an echo this time. They said the heart is strong, so that's good. And they did tell me that part of the heart is a little thickened, and that's the thickening there is because of AFib. And she was telling me that I'm probably having AFib and not feeling it, and so I don't think that's the case. It may be that it's happening at night, I'm not sure. I'm going to do a little research to see if it's something else. Maybe it's my training, because maybe the walls kind of thicken with, I think, on the right atria for athletes, so I'll check that out. But she also said that my aortic valve, so that's the valve coming from the heart back into the body, has just ever so little leak in it. And so I'm thinking, because I have a friend of mine that, a good friend of mine that I used to train with, and he had to have his valve replaced. So I'm thinking, oh, geez. But she said that is common with people over 60, so they're going to do an echo every 2 or 3 years on me and just check to see how things are going. So, okay. All is good. All right, I have some in-laws that are coming in a bit, and then after that, it's going to be the FTP test. Okay, I'm out here with Natalia again, and so we're doing, like I was telling you before, our FTP test. And I don't know if you can tell right now, but the fog is starting to lift, but it's still cold. So I'm in Gore-Tex right now. We're going to go for a little warm-up. I'm going to come back, and then we're going to do our test. Now, Natalia, her last test was in October, and she ended up with a calculated 161 FTP. My last test was almost a year ago, and I came up at 275, which was an increase for me back then. So I'm going to guess that I am now about 265. That's going to be my guess, which means I'm going to have to go something like 85 watts for 20 minutes. All right, let the fun begin. We just found out that my battery is out. I can't do an FTP test. That on one end, that kind of sucks. On the other end, that's a lot of pressure I don't feel right now. I'll probably do something like a Zwift ramp test tomorrow. Oh yeah, you're done. You were done about 10 seconds ago. Good job. When I did mine, I finished just after the top. And you just finished, whoops, back there a little bit. You're awesome.
It's 171. It went up.
Oh. Oh wow.
That's
awesome.
It was in May.
171. Okay.
Well, I'm still gonna double check.
Yes.
That seems like a big jump.
Well,
10 watts?
No, 10 watts. So that's going to be.
10%. Well, I guess it's 5%.
In a few months.
Less than 5%, 4%. Yeah.
Because you were 161, that's 10.
Yeah, wait,
It's
that
going to
sounds
be,
about good.
no, it's going to be like 6% if that holds.
Win it! Yay!
Nice.